Butthole Surfers, an American band who were formed in Texas in 1981 and as of 2016 are on hiatus. They're an alternative and cult-based band, as in they have a cult following, known for their experimental punk / sludge / noise / rock. They have a fascinating and complicated history that I quite enjoyed reading on Wikipedia. I'm going to just pull a couple of things out. They've had an impressively high turnover of bassists over the years, and they have a reputation for confrontational and bizarre stage shows, which include two drummers standing up drumming in unison, sometimes nudity from members of the band. They had a naked female dancer who was not part of the band but was part of their shows for several years, and then visual effects like multiple strobe lights, multiple film projectors, smoke machines, and sometimes a large white euphonium. They have created 8 albums so far. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the 3rd album by the band. I've heard of them, but I'm not sure if I've heard them before. I'm pretty sure I've not heard this album before. It was recorded in quite a low-end home studio. They bought an 8-track, and they were all living together in a 2-bedroom house in Winterville, Georgia, which is labelled as a city, but it's tiny. It was cheap. Obviously, it wasn't costing them studio time, so they could take their time and apparently have extended tea breaks. No, I'm sorry, I don't want to disparage them. Drug breaks. They're definitely experimental rock, and I would say that I have found over kind of my listening life, but also doing these reviews, that there's some experimental stuff that I really like. And then there's some experimental stuff that I don't like. But this is kind of fitting almost into a new category, which is experimental music for which I have mixed feelings. So I'm not ambivalent towards it, but there's some bits I like and some bits that I don't like. Let's see if we can do more descriptions. So there's some bizarre vocal processing going on. Apparently there was a big bank of effects that all went together that were known as Gibbytronics, which were named after the singer. There's some stuff that I would definitely classify as music. There's some stuff that I would definitely classify as probably more like chaos, done in such a way that it sounds like they can't really play at all, because it's just so disconnected. In some ways, it kind of, when I was writing this, it made me think about free jazz, which is interesting. And then there's experiments with tape processing and other studio effects in here as well. And apparently they spent quite a bit of time just messing stuff up on purpose in the studio. Some of it is, surprisingly to me, I felt that it had stuff that was reminiscent of krautrock. So krautrock was back in the early 70s and was experimental, mostly music from Germany, and tended to have a thing kind of that developed out of it that was called space rock. Now, space rock wasn't all krautrock. Not all krautrock was space rock, but space rock was music that kind of had a simple basis and created soundscapes that went on and on, kind of in a trance-like way, kind of the forerunner of trance music of the 90s. And there are parts of this that I would think kind of really fit into that category. And interestingly, there was a drum pattern that was particular to quite a lot of this space rock in krautrock called the motoric, and they've used it here on this album. So that was what kind of made me start thinking about krautrock, and then I kind of, actually, there's quite a lot of similarities here. Some of it has elements of what I have learned is called sludge sound. So I reviewed an album by the Melvins a while back. It's kind of slow and low, and sludge is a really great name for it. And this was in the kind of proto forerunner stage for grunge that gave birth to Nirvana, and Apparently, this band were part of that kind of proto-grunge area as well. There are other things in here as well. There's one track that was made by playing a recording made by a couple of artists from Thailand, so not their recording at all, but then processed through the processing rack that was generally used for the vocals. There's a track, the last track on the album is called 22 Going on 23, which features an extended bit of speech purporting to be, or actually being, a woman phoning into a radio show to talk about her efforts to recover from a sexual assault. The music for that is kind of dark and somewhat chaotic, and I think very appropriate for the subject that they're dealing with there. All of it has this kind of feeling of anarchy to it. Most of it has a feeling of anger to it. But there are elements of dark humour in here as well. And there's definitely discordant noise stuff going on here quite a bit of the time. My favourite track is the first track, which is called Sweat Loaf. Apparently a riff is taken from a Black Sabbath track called Sweet Leaf. I'm going to have to take Wikipedia's word for that because I don't know this track. But I found that in a nice groove and I enjoyed it, and it's got quite an interesting introduction bit with some spoken stuff, but I won't spoil that for you. I would describe it as being specialist listening. It's not for everybody. It is angry and it is noisy, but if you like stuff that is angry and noisy, so for example, you're particularly keen on metal or punk, and you want to try something that's more experimental but has that kind of same anger and energy to it, possibly, then you might want to try this. But if what you really like is Patsy Cline and straightforward rock and stuff, you might really not want to listen to this because it is pretty extreme. So that's my opinion, and I'd love to know what yours is. I know there will be people out there for whom they think this is an absolutely seminal album, and I'd love to hear what it is that you like about it, or if you took against it really badly, please talk to me about it. Let's get conversation going in the comments. That's it from me for now.